Welcome everybody. In this video, we're going to explore a topic that is foundational to most of the work that I share. And for many people, it may be the first time hearing it explained and described from a whole different perspective. We're going to be exploring what light language is, unpacking how to truly use it, and how it can actually be understood and experienced in a practical way. For many people, the term light language brings up a lot of mental constructs, interpretations, or even misconceptions. You may have heard it being called speaking in tongues or seen it demonstrated in a way that feels very out there or ungrounded. So the first thing I'm going to ask you is to just gently set aside all of those constructs, all of the definitions you've heard, and all the things you think you know or don't know about this topic. We're going to start from a place of neutrality, because the truth is, light language is not a language that you can learn in a way that you speak English or French. It is not a mental or structured process. It is a frequency you remember. If you haven't seen me yet, I'm Alali, and I'm a light language music frequency artist. And it is one of the most frequent questions I get. What is light language? When we use the term light language in our work, we actually just use it for recognition purposes, because it's the term that many people have come to know. But if we want to describe it more accurately, we are really referring to something that is much deeper. We like to call it telepathic frequency communication, or for short, TFC. You can also describe it as soul frequency communication or sound codes. These terms point more directly to what is actually happening, because in truth, light language is not a language in the way we normally understand language. When people hear it for the first time, the brain often tries to categorize it in that way. It sounds like speech, it has rhythm, it has tone, so the mind naturally assumes it must be some sort of foreign language. But what's really happening is something much deeper than linguistic communication. Language as we know it, like English or any spoken language, is a system designed to move information from one mind to another or vice versa. When you hear a word, your brain immediately begins a specific process. Your auditory system receives the sound, the brain identifies the phonetic pattern, and then it searches through stored memory for a definition that matches that pattern. The prefrontal cortex plays a major role in this process. It essentially asks, what does this mean? Where does this fit? What is the concept attached to this sound? So when you hear a familiar word, your brain quickly finds the definition and then translates it into meaning. But when you hear what we call soul frequency communication, something very different begins to happen. The brain initially does the same thing it always does. The prefrontal cortex immediately starts searching for a definition. It begins scanning through its entire filing system, trying to identify this language. It asks questions like, what is this? What language is that? What does it mean? It is actively trying to locate the category that fits the sound that it's hearing. But then something interesting occurs. It can't find one. There is no existing file in the brain for what it is hearing. So after a brief moment of searching, the brain reaches a point where it recognizes that it cannot translate the information using its normal systems. And when that happens, the mind does something very powerful. It steps back. It essentially says, this is not my job. There is no definition to attach to this sound, no conceptual framework to place it into. So instead of continuing to analyze it, the thinking mind pauses and bypasses the prefrontal cortex. You could almost imagine it is like placing your brain in a comfortable waiting room. The mental processing slows down because the information being received is not designed to be translated through thought. It is being received through frequency and feeling. That means the experience begins to bypass that analytical filters of the mind and instead is received through the body's energetic systems, the nervous system, and particularly through the heart field and the cellular intelligence. And this is where the science becomes very interesting. Most people think of memory and perception as something that only happens in the brain or inside the skull. But modern research has shown that the heart itself contains its own neural network, which is known as the intrinsic cardiac nervous system, or ICNS. This network contains over 40,000 neurons, and this is why it is sometimes referred to as the heart's little brain. Just like the cranial brain, this system is capable of processing information and even storing memory patterns. In fact, the heart sends more signals to the brain than the actual brain sends to the heart. So the communication between the heart and the brain is not a one-way system where the brain is always in charge. It is actually a dynamic conversation between two intelligent centers of the body. When someone hears soul frequency communication, the thinking brain may not be able to interpret the sound intellectually, but the heart brain recognizes the frequency immediately. The closest comparison that science has for this phenomenon is something called sound or music-evoked autobiographical memory. It's quite a mouthful, but in short, meme. This is the experience many people have when hearing a song that suddenly transports them back to a specific moment in their life. A certain melody might have triggered memories of a childhood home, a relationship, or a moment in time you had almost forgotten. When this happens, several regions of the brain becomes active at once. The hippocampus, which is responsible for your memory retrieval, begins to activate these stored experiences. The amygdala, which processes emotional responses, becomes stimulated, which is why memory often arrives with a strong emotional feeling. At the same time, the brain releases dopamine, which is the neurochemical associated with pleasure, reward, and meaningful recognition. This is why certain sounds can give you goosebumps, or what scientists call frisson, that sudden wave of sensation moving through your body. But sound frequency communication goes beyond simply recalling memories from the past. What science currently describes as sound-triggered memory actually touches something far more multidimensional. Because when the heart and brain enter a coherent state together, the body is not only accessing memories stored in the past, it begins accessing larger fields of information. In that state, time is no longer experienced strictly linear. Past, present, and potential future begin to converge within the same moment of awareness. This is why sometimes when people hear light language, they experience sudden emotional releases, physical sensations like tingling or warmth, or an immediate sense of calm or clarity. Sometimes new ideas arise, or a deep inner knowing appears without any logical explanation. The body is essentially remembering through frequency. Another way I like to describe this is audible bridge telepathy. The universe, your source self, and your higher awareness communicates through multidimensional frequencies. In their pure form, these communications are instantaneous, silent, and beyond words. They are simply direct knowing. But in the physical reality, our nervous system often needs a vehicle to perceive those frequencies. And one of the most powerful vehicles, or bridge, for that translation is sound. Voice, tone, music, and vibration becomes bridges that allow those subtle frequencies to enter our sensory experience. So when you hear someone speak or sing light language, what you are hearing is not a message that needs translation like a foreign language. What you are receiving is a vibrational transmission that your body understands directly. This is why the key to experiencing it is to stop listening with your analytical mind and to begin listening with your body and feeling awareness. The translation does not happen through thinking. It happens through sensation. You might notice your shoulders relax, your breath deepening, a warmth in your chest, or a sense of peace moving through your nervous system. Some might notice flashes of images, memory, as well as intuitive knowing and remembrance. That is the translation happening. Your body understands the translation even if your mind cannot define it. And when this happens, something remarkable happens between the heart and the brain. They begin to move into coherence. Instead of the brain operating in anxious, scattered thought patterns, it synchronizes with the rhythmic electromagnetic field of the heart. The heart's field becomes more ordered, the nervous system settles, and the brain shifts into a state of calm clarity. In that state, your awareness becomes more receptive to intuitive insight, creativity, and emotional healing. And the translation in our understanding is received in a pace and in a way that will only make sense that is unique to your experience. From a quantum perspective, this all makes sense. We have been taught to believe that we are solid beings living in a material universe, that the world around us is made out of fixed objects, and that we ourselves are essentially physical structures moving through physical environment. But modern physics has shown us something completely different. At the deepest level, everything is made out of energy, frequency, and vibration. What we perceive as solid matter is actually an incredibly organized field of vibrating energy. The atoms that make up your body, the air around you, the planet beneath your feet, and the stars in the sky are all composed of vibrating fields interacting with one another. Sound is vibration moving through a medium. It is movement expressed as frequency. When vibration moves through space, it creates resonance, and that resonance begins organizing energy into patterns. These patterns aren't random. They follow very precise mathematical and geometrical relationships that appear throughout nature and throughout the universe. One of the most beautiful ways that we can see this is through what scientists call cymatics. Cymatics is the study of how sound frequencies organize physical material. When a specific tone is played through a plate covered in sand or water, the vibration begins arranging that material into intricate geometric shapes. Different frequencies produce different patterns. But what is fascinating is that many of those patterns resemble the sacred geometric forms that appear everywhere in nature. Among the most common well-known of these patterns is the flower of life. The flower of life is a geometric structure composed of evenly spaced circles that intersect with one another in perfect symmetry. When two circles overlap, they form a shape we call the Visca Pisces, a sacred geometric form that represents the moment when one becomes two. This geometry is not just symbolic, it mirrors the natural progression of life itself. When a single cell divides in its earliest stages of life, it follows a very similar pattern. 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 8, and each new sphere of life emerges from the intersection of the previous one. This process of cellular division follows geometric relationships that are remarkably similar to the flower of life pattern. In other words, the very process through which biological life unfolds is mirrored in the geometry created by vibration. But if we go even deeper into the mathematics of vibration and energy movement, we begin to see another fascinating pattern that appears throughout nature, energy systems, and even electrical flow. This is something often referred to as vortex mathematics. When energy moves through cycles of doubling, 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 8, 8 becomes 16, and so on, a repeating numerical pattern appears when those numbers are reduced to their single-digit essence. This pattern is 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, and 5, and then it repeats back to 1 again. The sequence forms a kind of energetic loop. It represents the cycle of physical manifestation, the continuous movement of energy through the structures of matter and form. It is the pattern of growth, division, multiplication, and expansion that we see reflected everywhere in the physical universe. It mirrors the ways that cells divide, the way energy circulates, and the way physical systems organize themselves through the cycles of transformation. But within this system, there is another pattern that behaves very differently. The numbers 3, 6, and 9. When these numbers are placed within the same doubling system, they do not participate in the physical looping pattern. Instead, they oscillate within their own triangular relationship, 3 moving to 6, 6 moving to 9, and 9 returning to 3. Rather than circulating through the physical manifestation cycle, they act more like a regulating axis, a stabilizing field that sits slightly outside of the looping pattern of matter. This creates a gateway or 0-point axis, a point where motion becomes balanced, a point where opposing forces synchronize. And when we look at the human body, something very similar happens within our own energy systems. The thinking brain operates largely within that analytical structures of the physical world, processing information, categorizing experience, and navigating the material environment. But the heart operates differently. The heart generates the strongest electromagnetic field in the body, and when the brain and the heart begins to synchronize with one another, they enter what we call coherence. In that coherent state, the nervous system stabilizes, emotional turbulence quiets, and the brain begins operating in a more harmonious pattern. It's like the looping activity of the mind suddenly finds that axis of balance. You could almost imagine the analytical mind moving to the physical cycle like the 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5 pattern, while the heart provides the stabilizing field, the axis, the center point where those movements come into harmony. When those two systems align, something remarkable happens. The body enters a state where intuition, emotion, and cognition are no longer in conflict. They move together. This is the state we refer to as heart-brain coherence that I mentioned earlier. And it is within that coherent state that soul language most naturally emerges. Because soul language is not generated through analytical thought. It arises from the harmonic field created when mind and heart are synchronized. When the mind relaxes and the heart's electromagnetic field begins to guide the nervous system into coherence, the deeper intelligence of the body becomes accessible. And from that place, expression flows naturally. Sound may emerge, movement may emerge, creative inspiration may arise, not from effort, but from alignment. So when we talk about sound as the origin of creation, we are not talking metaphorically. Sound, frequency, and vibration organizes energy into form. They are the blueprint of structure itself, which means that in a very real sense, we are not simply physical beings who produce sound. We are beings whose very existence emerges from sound and vibration. Even the word person carries an interesting clue. If we look at the linguistic roots, the word per means of, and son relates to sonic or sound. So the word person can literally be interpreted as of sound. Isn't that incredible? We are beings of sound, not beings of light. Light organizes from sound. Beings of sound, beings of frequency, beings of vibration interacting within a field of vibration. When we understand this, something profound begins to shift in how we view communication. Because soul language is not something new that we are learning. It is something we are and something we are remembering. Sound is simply one of the most natural expressions of that remembrance. Because sound is vibration made audible. So coming back to soul language, it is not limited just through vocal expression. It is the unique expression of your soul's frequency moving through you, expressed in a way that is unique to only you, just like the natural progression of the patterns I just spoke about. Sometimes that expression appears as sound, speaking, singing, humming, toning, or like I said, what most people call vocal light language. But very often, it appears in other ways. For some people, it emerges through movement, dance. You may experience moments where you feel like your hands begin to move spontaneously while you're speaking or meditating. Certain hand positions appear naturally, almost as if the body knows where they should be placed. These movements are sometimes called mudras, and they're a form of energetic communication through the body. Or perhaps you have had the experience of dancing where you're not thinking about your steps. Your body simply moves. There is no choreography, no planning, just movement flowing through you. That is frequency expressing itself through motion, just like the movement of that first circle that became the Visca Pisces, or the cell dividing through its own natural progression. For others, soul language appears through creative expression. An artist painting in a deep flow state of expressing their soul language. Or a musician improvising from a place of pure feeling is expressing soul language. A writer who suddenly feels words pouring onto a page faster than they can think them. That is soul language moving through creative form. Sometimes this expression takes the forms of symbols or images. You may find yourself drawing shapes or patterns that you do not consciously understand, yet they feel meaningful or potent when you create them. This is another form of frequency translating itself into physical expression. And sometimes soul language appears through synchronicity, like number synchronicities. Seeing repeating numbers like 111, 444, 999 can act as a kind of telepathic signal, a reminder from your deeper awareness that you are in alignment with a particular energetic pathway. Or perhaps you had the experience of thinking about someone and moments later they send you a text or they call you. That instant recognition, that silent communication is another form of telepathic frequency communication. So when we expand our understanding of soul language, we begin to see that it has likely been present in our lives all along. Anytime you enter a genuine flow state where you are creating, moving, or expressing yourself without the interference of overthinking, you are already aligned with your soul's frequency. Light language or telepathic frequency communication through sound is simply one of the ways that frequency becomes audible. It is one doorway among many. And perhaps the most important thing to remember is this. Soul language is not something you have to learn. It is not a skill you must master. It is something you are remembering how to allow. Because the moment the mind relaxes its need to control the experience, the deeper intelligence of the body and the heart begins to express what has always been there. Your frequency, your resonance, your voice within the universal symphony of vibration. And this leads us to something very important. If soul language is already a natural part of who you are, then the question becomes, how do I consciously reconnect with it? How do we begin to recognize and activate this frequency into our daily lives? The first step is actually very simple. It begins with awareness. And a word that is actually synonymous to awareness is imagination. And what is imagination but simply your inner child, the one who loves to play, create, explore, discover, and experience. And that is how we reach it. We allow it. We exercise reminding ourselves how to play. And in play, you create, and in creation, you are present and are here now, which is that coherent and convergence of all aspects of yourself. Most people assume that soul language is something mystical or rare and only certain people can access it. But the truth is, you have been expressing it your entire life. Every time you enter a genuine flow state, when you're creating, moving, speaking, or even simply being without overthinking, You're already aligned with your soul's frequency. You're already communicating through it. What we are doing here is simply bringing conscious awareness to something that has always been happening naturally. So I want to offer you a very simple practice you can begin using whenever you listen to your soul. Anything that feels resonant to you, a song, a dance, or something that you just love to do. Instead of trying to understand the why with the mind, try this. Place one hand gently on your heart and your other hand gently on your solar plexus. These two centers together create what I like to call the feeling circuit. Your heart is where frequency is received and felt. Your solar plexus is where that frequency begins translating into intuitive knowing. And once your hands are there, allow your shoulders just to drop. Close your eyes if you choose, and then just let your jaw relax. Take a slow, deep breath in here, and a slow, deep breath out. Imagine sound or vibration moving through the space around you like a wave, in the space of your aura, and allow your body to feel into it rather than analyze it. You may notice subtle sensations, perhaps a warmth in your chest, a soft tingling in your hands, a deepening of your breath, or a sudden sense of calm just moving through your body. Sometimes people experience goosebumps, emotions, laughter, or even tears by just tuning into their fields. All of this is completely natural. What is happening in those moments is that your nervous system is synchronizing with the frequency being received through your natural energy field. It is the sound of you listening to you. Your mind is stepping back and your body is beginning to translate that information through sensation. And this is the language of your source code. It is somatic, it is intuitive, and it is deeply intelligent. You may even notice that new ideas suddenly appear, or that memories surface, or that something you have been thinking about suddenly just becomes clear. That is your system integrating your frequency. So the next time you listen, you might simply ask your body a gentle question. What is the sensation of this frequency communicating to me? What is the message of the frequency for my journey right now? And then just notice what arises. There is nothing you need to force, nothing you need to perform. It is simply a process of allowing. Now take another deep breath in here and out. And if you close your eyes, you can go ahead and open them now. So if this topic resonates with you and you would like to explore it deeper, you can find the additional resources and writings in the descriptions below or on my link tree. You'll find a link there if you'd like to experience your own one-on-one self-remembrance session. And I want to take a moment to clearly explain what this session is and what it is not as we begin stepping more consciously into remembering our soul's frequencies. This session is not a psychic reading. While many insights can arise during these sessions, the purpose is not for me to give you information or give you something that you do not already possess. We can provide guidance and resonance as you explore, but you are sovereign, you are whole, you are capable, and your frequency already exists within you, and only you know what resonates with your soul. My role is simply to act as that bridge. Whether you're already expressing your vocal frequencies or you have never experienced them before, the process remains the same. Together, we create a coherent energetic space where remembrance can occur naturally. During the session, we begin by setting a clear intention for your remembrance. And from there, we move into what we call a chakra vocal TFC 0 point balancing. This is a process where sound frequencies are used to support the body's energetic centers in returning to harmonic coherence. As your system begins to respond, your source self will naturally reveal the aspects of your soul's expression that is ready to step forward. Sometimes this appears as vocal frequencies, sometimes as movement, sometimes as emotion or sensations just moving through the body, and all of it is completely natural. When energy begins to move, the body often responds physically. You might feel tingling in your hands or feet, temperature shifts, goosebumps, or sometimes even nothing. You might want to laugh, or there might be tears. Sometimes people experience their stomachs rumbling, or they cough or burp as the energy moves. And like I said, sometimes people experience nothing. Nothing is wrong when this happens. Your system is just simply reorganizing itself in the way that is unique to you. It is energy moving, or it is energy simply allowing stillness. What many people feel most strongly during these sessions is something very simple but incredibly powerful, and that is recognition. A deep inner moment where the soul says, "Finally, I remember." The purpose is to show you how to activate this connection for yourself so that you can integrate this awareness into your daily life, your creativity, your communication, and your own expression of your soul language. In the next segments, you will first go through a self-activation practice. This is a fun and playful technique that allows you to explore your own vocal tones and begin discovering your natural entry points into audibly expressing your soul's frequency. After completing that practice, you will find the scheduling link for your one-on-one session just below that video. When you click that link, it will take you directly to the calendar where you can choose the day and time that works best for you. As usual, the session takes place on Zoom, so I recommend that you choose a quiet and comfortable space where you will not be interrupted. Also, make sure to show up on your computer or have your phone placed where you can have your hands free during the session. You may want to have some water nearby and also some tissues as well. These sessions can be deeply beautiful, sometimes emotional, often joyful. You may laugh, you may cry, but most importantly, you will play. And in that play, flow naturally occurs. So have fun with the process and simply allow. Look forward to holding that space with you. If you feel called to explore this more deeply, you can find the links in the description below or in the bio link in my link tree. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next part of the journey.